Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Beyond Your Radio. And of course, tonight it's panelists' favorite show. It's the third part of the four-part series. So, in case you missed out, part one was debut albums by bands. Part two was debut albums by women, and part three tonight, debut solo albums by male. Um, these are our favorites. Don't get upset. They're not on the master list or the best debuts of all time. They may or may not be critical darlings. That's up to us and you. What they did apparently was leave an impression at that time with us, right? And that's the most important part of all. And of course, any of these are probably albums that we all played the hell out of, had to replace a cassette. The 8-track broke, something of that nature. So join us Tuesday of next for the finale, which will be on Of Sound Minds, where we take a look back and say, okay, all these debuts that we love so much, are they the most important debuts of all time? Or are there more important debuts of all time that we didn't think were our favorites, but they wound up being important in the grand scheme of things? I got a feeling that one that's going to get mentioned tonight is probably on that list, at least from tonight, but I might be wrong. It's just my opinion. The debut critical thing for the solo artist, it gets your name out there. Things can go right, things can go wrong, budgets, timing, all kinds of things. I've already said this in the other video, so I'll breeze on by. But the big thing here is that, you never know what you're going to get or what they're going to have to fight to get their album out and be seen. Of course, Mr. Crichton knows what they need to do to fight to get out there, and they need him in the trenches. But unfortunately, he's retired, and he won't hawk an album for you unless you're bringing crazy money in cash, in a or gold Kugran, I guess maybe. So, but before we get into the panelists' 5 choices today, just a reminder that if you like what we're doing, please subscribe if you haven't already. Dad, don't unsubscribe again. You already subscribed. Stop clicking on and off clicking on. Please get in, comment if you can. It's always nice to have people chiming in. So anyway, on the panel tonight, he came. Well, just put it this way: he can sing solo. Solo, we can't hear him. Jeff Young is on the panel tonight. She's always playing solo air guitar in public. It's kind of embarrassing. Deb Armitage Hicks Maloney. Damn. He sold a few solo albums in his day. The infamous promoter, Mr. Jeff Crichton, joins us. And she's written solo piano material that probably no one will ever hear, although I think Deb has gotten a chance to.
Yep.
Susie Q, she will join us after, well, doing all the mommy things of picking up people from work. So one of us had to do that deed, and she didn't want to host, which I think is a big mistake. She wouldn't go on and on like I am. How is everybody?
Good. Great, thank you.
Good. So I found this hard. I had my mind like, it's going to be that one. It's going to be that one. It's going to be that one. And then I found out that's not their debut. Or I found out it wasn't that good. It was the second one I liked more, or the third one,
Yeah.
And I did do these one in one album, and that's all they had kind of thing. Maybe I used it, maybe I didn't. But what I found, I don't know if you guys found this to be true. It seemed to me that I was gravitating to the people who are already in bands. So it'll be interesting to see where you guys came on this one.
Yeah, for me, I just was like, I'm gonna make this easy. I'm just gonna see if there's anything that I've grown up listening to or just appreciate the most. I'm not gonna worry about hip hop, R&B. I'm not gonna worry about pop. I'm just gonna like, if I need to go to those, I will. But those are probably obvious, and
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, on that note, I will let Deb kick us off.
That doesn't mean somebody's going to have the 4 solo Kiss albums that came out.
No, they weren't on my list. None of them.
Yes, I'm done. See ya.
Well, it was interesting you said that, Mark, because I had a problem too, and I thought I was going to start out with this exercise on one path of how I was going to choose them, and then it changed. And the same thing is like you were saying that, A lot of them had been in bands already, but my first three, or I should say my last three, 5, 4, and 3, they're personal choices for different reasons. But I did look back at my list when I was all done, and they were albums that really did end up being impactful too. Not that they were just my favorite, but maybe it was something different that I had never heard, and now I listen to that kind of music because of them. So my number 5, it's kind of interesting. It's definitely not a love story type of album at all. Notorious B.I.G.
I almost was thinking of picking that actually.
There you go.
Really?
There's a curveball.
Yeah. So Ready to Die, 1994. It's like I said, it's not a personal favorite because I mean it's listen to the names of some of these songs. Machine Gun Funk, Ready to Die, Who Shot Ya? Other album or song names that I'm not going to say because I'm a lady. It's not a sing-along album at all, but I really love Juicy and Big Papa, and his voice and just the phrasing of those songs and the beat. It was in the middle of grunge was king, and I'm a white suburban woman. And when I heard that, I went, this is kind of fun. So then when I heard the explicit version, I went, oh,
Yeah, there's
I
always
shouldn't. Yeah. So the music is way better than the lyrics are, for sure. But it was something that when I went through and I tried to go decade by decade and see where I was in my life during that decade, and I could have picked some other ones, but that definitely influenced me for hip hop rap.
You know what's funny is if you listen to even just like the first couple tracks on that album,
Yeah.
it makes me think of how they always said that the biggest difference between Eminem and many others was that instead of rhyming words, he was rhyming sentences. And I feel like B.I.G. does that, at least in select songs. Like he doesn't maybe do it in every one, because a lot of it is just more talking, but
yeah,
he does that.
Yeah, he does.
The music gets it done though. It's just you can say whatever you want, but if that backing track is not hot smoking and doing what it's supposed to, and fresh and not regurgitated, almost sometimes it can feel regurgitated to a music ear. I mean, jazz people that they're not gonna they're gonna tune that out. But that was on. I was a list of mine. I'm like I kind of like the greatest hits better, but
oh yeah.
Okay, good. Mr. Crichton.
Wop bop a loo bop a sis bam boom tutti frutti oh Rudy. Woo! All right, there we go.
Yeah, Little Richard, baby. Gotta be.
So if that's not a clue, what is? So as you would say, I am the originator.
Mm-hmm.
Richard, his debut album from 1957. Here's Little Richard. Had Tutti Frutti, Ready Teddy, Long Tall Sally, Rip It Up. So those 4 songs alone, history.
Yep.
And so that's my number 5.
I love it.
That one, that's an important album in debut history.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
Bar none.
Yep.
So yeah. So well, I won't do any more on that later. So Jeff Young, you're number 5.
I'm just doing 5 or no particular order, but I'm just gonna get this out of the way because I'm sure it's gonna be.
And he's been removed from the show.
So I'm picking from 1967, and yes, that's before I was born. The Jimi Hendrix Experience. So what's funny is it's listed as or it's referred albums. So get some of these other albums that came out. These are artists that came out.
Hang on, year. Jeff, you got to go back. We lost audio on you for a minute.
Yeah, so I picked Jimi Hendrix from 1967, Jimi Hendrix Experience. And what's funny is this is it's been regarded as a landmark album and a year of landmark albums. So then I looked at that year to see, okay, who else had albums that year? So the Doors, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, James Brown, Beach Boys, The Who, Hollies, Jefferson Airplane, The Birds, Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, The Beatles, Moody Blues Cream, Grateful Dead. I mean, just the Kinks. I mean, holy cow, that was a hell of a year.
Yeah.
But
several of those
obviously,
debuts too.
It's on everyone's list of one of the greatest rock albums of all time, and it's got rock, R&B, blues. It's also some psychedelic rock. You know, even 4 of the songs are regarded as some of the better songs, like Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, Hey Joe, Wind Cries Mary. Jimi Hendrix was noticed. He was kind of a struggling R&B backup guitarist, and then he was noticed by Keith Richards' girlfriend Linda in a club playing somewhere, and then that's kind of how he got noticed and started getting referred to by other companies or record companies, and first couple passed, but eventually obviously he made it. Paul McCartney had recommended Hendrix to be added to the Monterey Pop Festival, saying that it would be incomplete festival without Hendrix, and so that's where Hendrix burned his guitar and smashed the guitar in the finale for his performance. It's somewhat legendary. That kind of put him on the map as well. That's the one I picked.
Nice job.
Yeah, that was
should be on there.
If there's going to be overlap in that regard, I mean, that's for sure. For me, I play that album, but I've been playing more of certain other parts and over the stuff that got released later, just in live concerts, and I don't know what it is. I go to that album, but I just doesn't become like super favorite. It's on my list. It's number 12, 11.
I mean, if not for just those 4 songs, I think that's probably mostly why I would have picked it. But then when I started reading about it, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Well, my number 5 falls into the first of artists who didn't leave his band, kind of thought maybe the band was not going to be anymore or hadn't been anymore. And that's Jerry Cantrell, Alice in Chains. He put up Boggy Depot. That guitar, it's synonymous with grunge, and how he made it swampy and just super cool record. I played the hell out of it. I still do. His follow-up records, Degradation Trips 1 and 2, were excellent too, but that was a debut that I took notice of because I kind of thought he couldn't survive without that band and within what he does, but he proved that was not the case by any means. And grunge is not just, this pile on kind of thing. It can be separated. It can be impactful. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing pleasant or happy in any of these songs. They're not singing about finding your love and going on a date or long walk on the beach, but it's certainly gripping, and that guitar playing was unique at that time to me and what I was listening to. So the Jerry Cantrell's Boggy Depot was my number 5.
Oh, and you used a really good word from your thesaurus. Swampy goes with boggy. There you go.
Boggy.
Nice. Boggy and swampy.
Back to you, Deb.
Okay, so this is a very nostalgic one for me. It's an album that came out in 1972, and I was 10 years old, and this was the time of the Osmonds and the Monkees and the Partridge Family and Bobby Sherman and all, first hanging up posters of cute young guys that were singing in these groups. But this album was his first debut as a solo artist, and it's Michael Jackson's Got to Be There. And it's nothing, overly special other than the fact that we know what Michael Jackson's career became. He sounded pretty much the same in 1972 as he did his whole life. But
a little too high pitched, but yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. But there's some covers on there, and I love Michael Jackson. I've always thought he was extremely talented, and it was one of those albums that I remember distinctly going, can I buy an album? I didn't have a record
that's
player,
right.
but I wanted
right.
to buy an album. So
I think that's one of those that most of us would go off the wall, right? We would think
yeah,
that that's where it started. But
nope,
see,
it didn't.
that's kind of where I was like, oh, Thriller isn't, but when Quincy
Mhm.
Jones taps you, you're on. Things
But it's
happen.
funny because Off the Wall was definitely, I can remember when that album came out and I was in high school and I was like, there he is again.
Yeah.
And it was like, yay.
Yeah, he kind of grew up a little bit. He
Yeah.
put on, he had another few inches from the prior. Mr. Crichton.
So my number 4 pick is my favorite guitar player of all time. And after the Yardbirds and after the very first group with Rod Stewart and Ron Wood and the great drummer Mickey Waller and Nicky Hopkins, and then forming his second band, and then having a trio with Bogart and Appice. And so Jeff Beck decided, like, I don't need a singer. I can make a guitar record by myself. And oh, hello, George Martin, will you produce it for me?
Mhm.
And my number 4 is Jeff Beck's first solo record, Blow by Blow, which, if nobody's ever heard it, it'll blow your mind.
Oh,
It's a spectacular record, and it's got every elements of Beck's playing, from rock to blues to jazz to fusion. It's as perfect a guitar record as there possibly could be. And I even thought, in all the years I worked with Van Halen and they kept replacing, when they brought in Gary Cerrone as the third singer, I remember thinking, like, man, I love to tell Eddie, you know what? Just make a guitar record. You don't need a singer. Just go make a guitar record. And that never happened. And I wish he would have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. Now, Jeff Beck has become an acquired taste for me. It didn't start there. It took a while to get there, and that's why he's on my list, but he's in the 20. And I was listening to Nikki Strauss today.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. And she brings in all these artists to sing. And every time they open their mouths, I don't care. And I'm just wondering who told her that she had to have somebody sing. Do a band, and that's fine. But all these people coming in and out, some are okay, some are. But her playing is then overshadowed by Lizzie Hale and all these other people. Not that Lizzie Hale's bad, but it's your record. Joe Satriani. Buckethead's a different example. Steve Vai.
Steve Vai, right?
Yeah, and Jeff Beck is I'm telling you, as my things go further on in life, and it's his guitar is singing.
Yeah.
Somehow, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And nobody Clapton doesn't do that. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't happen. I don't know if there's anybody that happens, but everybody has some signature sound, but but he's done the same thing though. He's brought people in to sing,
but not on the whole record.
No, not on a whole record, but
no. But and then if you even go back, those first 2 solo records, those first 2 Jeff Beck band albums, Truth and Beckola, are classics.
Yep.
They're brilliant records, and that's really the first time. He wasn't his first time recording, but first time people heard Rod Stewart. So
yeah.
Well, he's one of my favorites, but I have enough Jeffs on this show, so there's no more Jeffs.
It's a problem.
Oh
It's a
my
problem.
God.
Do you think well, never mind. I won't go. All right, Mr. Young.
So I'm gonna go with Ian Thornley. After a big wreck, he auditioned for Slash's Velvet Revolver, didn't get it. And then Nickelback's Chad Kroeger signed him to his record company and added the original bassist from The Watchmen and the drummer from Edwin and the Pressure. And then Thornley came out with their self-titled. It was a great album. To this day, it's probably my favorite of them. I'll probably talk about that on several other shows. But
Thornley had that album has been mentioned. There's no question, but you're true. The truth is it is in that category. It's a great album. All right. So number 4 for me. It's the only no, it's not the only fun record, but it is ridiculous. All right. And the voice is iconic to a level that it is immediate when it's heard. I don't think anybody actually, went out looking for Funky Cold Medina, but they found Funky Cold Medina. Tone Loc after dark is
it's 2 for 1 on ladies' night.
I just every time. I mean, damn it.
That's a
The
good one. I
rhymes,
like
and
it,
there's no
Mark.
swearing on it.
No,
It's
you're
lighter.
right.
It's
Yeah.
and he only did that in one album after that, which was really nothing. I mean, just drop. Nothing happened out of that record, but I don't know, just what was that? 1989.
It propelled him into an acting career in Ace Ventura.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
He's been in tons of things. I always see him around, but I'm like, do an album, go back. Just I wouldn't even mind if he toured. I would go. Just it was just at that moment. I remember playing that in the car, and every track is a bomb track. Every track is just I don't know half of what that life is like, but I just that's kind of cool. And he's not thugging it, kind of. It's a dope kind of thing, I listen. The one thing it's about me, as you can see from my lovely, pale skin. We can zoom in if you like. There's nothing dope about me. I mean, it's not, I don't have.
I'd call you dope. You're a dope. You're a big dope.
Yeah, you're a big dope. That's your different dope. Back to you, Deb.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna hurry this along a little bit. I'm gonna say number 3 was my Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Jeff stole that from me, but I was alive when that came out, Jeff. So,
I don't believe it.
what good answer.
Birth certificate, registration.
I didn't even know if that would be counted because wasn't he really Jimi Hendrix and what was the name of
The Experience.
the Experience. So I didn't know if he was a band.
Well, that's sort of
Yes.
like
Yeah, I know, but guess what? When I pulled it up on Amazon Music, they didn't list them. It just said Jimi Hendrix. So that was what I went with.
That's like Santana. You can say what you
Yeah,
want, but
I know.
it's a solo, but it's a band.
Yeah.
It's I think if
and
any of the members got hurt in the back and someone replaced them, you wouldn't have
wouldn't know the difference. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was thinking.
Like
But
Mark Kuligowski's Beyond Your Radio. Everyone just calls it the Mark Kuligowski Show.
yeah,
Yes,
it
yes.
has nothing to do with us, right? Oh, good point, Jeff. And for all the same reasons that Jeff said, all the songs, but what I found interesting was the very last song on that album. I think it's Red House. That
Yes.
is just
Mm.
good old blues.
That's blues.
That just brings it right back to what he loved to play, what he came from, where he lived, what was part of his experience as a kid, and what his musical tastes, how they formed, and then how he just made it explode into something no ears had ever heard before. So I like how he did that with the last song and kind of brought it back to his roots. And that album, 17 songs, 1 hour. That's, there were some albums back then, 28 minutes,
Yeah.
and some of the
I've got a
songs
couple
were
on the
really
list.
super short. What did you say?
I got a 1 or 2 on my list.
Yeah, I do too. We'll get to them. So that's my number 3.
Cool. Mr. Crichton, back to you.
The Jimi Hendrix Experience. No. So funny thing about that first record after he played Monterey in May of 67, and then he was asked to be the opener on the very first tour of the Monkees that summer.
Mm-hmm.
What a billing.
Wow.
And he only lasted a handful of shows
Oh yeah.
Before the booking agent just said,
Said,
like,
this doesn't really mesh.
yeah. But he did open up for the Monkees. So
That's funny.
Wow.
how about that?
Yeah, I just watched a documentary on him and they said that. You
It's-
guys know I like my documentary.
It's on his
Yeah.
tombstone. I opened for the Monkees.
It's on his tombstone and
Yeah.
got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
why.
Those moms bringing their little daughters to that show must have just like been
Woo.
saying, "What is this?"
I can tell you that
Half-naked
man
black
did
guy
not want to
fly out of
monkey
his
around
mind.
by any means. No.
Yeah. So,
Wow, there's a bad idea right there. Wow.
well, actually, it was probably a cool idea back then, but
Yeah.
oh well. My number 3, back in the mid '80s when the Stones almost seemed like they were going to break up, and Jagger was, they put out a bad album called Dirty Works,
Yeah.
and they decided not to tour behind it, and that ticked off Keith, and then Jagger went. He made a couple bad solo records, but in the midst of all that, Keith came out with his solo record called "Talk Is Cheap," and there were a couple stabs at Mick on that record. One of which was a semi-hit called
Those are like the early.
Hard.
That's before there was tweeting. Those are the first tweets. We just didn't know it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
The first tweet.
yeah. So he made this record with Steve Jordan, who's now who has replaced Charlie in the touring band as the drummer, and that's where Keith's band, the Expensive Winos,
I love that name.
began with Waddy Wachtel and Ivan Neville and Steve Jordan and Keith, and it's a great down dirty record, and I must concur that some people were saying that it was the best Stones album in a long time.
Oh no.
And I would have to agree.
I did like the Harlem Shuffle. Just I don't know why. I just
That was a cover song.
Yeah, I just for some reason. I mean, they've been a band that covers, right? I just
Yeah.
But I think Keith's album had more. It's almost like he was holding back like stuff he could have put on that record and said, no, I'll keep it on my solo. Maybe
he wasn't planning on making a solo record until the riff. So
yeah,
instead of touring, he probably had a bunch of songs in the drawer that he said, okay, you're not going to go on tour. I'm going to make another record and I'll take this band on tour.
Yeah,
she did.
Oh, he did go on tour.
The Expensive Winos did some dates
tour
after that record. Yeah,
that is a good band.
Did you get to see or no?
No, I would have loved to.
Mr. Young.
I'm going to go with Blizzard of Oz, 1980 from Ozzy Osbourne. Black Sabbath days.
Nice.
The album is really good, and of course, picking up guitars like Randy Rhoads is really helpful for that.
Yeah.
Originally, it was intended to be Blizzard of Oz featuring Ozzy Osbourne. I think Sharon Osbourne had something to do with when it came out. It actually said Ozzy Osbourne, and then Blizzard of Oz was kind of like the album. So I think at the time, what I read was that a couple of the band members were like, "This sucks, we're going to quit." But then they realized the opportunity they had in front of them, and they knew there was some success ahead of them. They just kind of just took it as it went. The other thing about this album, too, this is the album that had Suicide Solution, where Ozzy was sued by a family because they said that his son killed themselves after listening to Suicide Solution. I mean, it was thrown, it was dismissed. But anyway, that was like the biggest news worthy note from the album. I guess pop culturally, but just a really good album, really good guitar playing. All the members had pretty much, from what I read, equal roles in writing the tracks. So, it's just a great album.
Mm-hmm.
Although Crazy Train is overplayed, and if I never hear it again, I'll be fine with it.
I'm going to play it for you every time you sign on to our show, Jeff, just to make you feel welcome and loved.
Yeah, just so we can't get monetized or it even played at all. Probably get stripped
Oh
over.
yeah, I'm sorry. I wouldn't do that to you.
I would assume that's one
Aaron
of those.
Osborne's coming for you.
Yeah, someone's coming for me. Men in black coats. All right, we're at 3, right? So
Mhm.
I saw him live before I even bought an album. He played Thursday in the Square. Someone said, "You got to see this young man. He's the next Billy Joel." And I said, "Boy, that's a hell of a compliment, because there's a man whose stage presence and the way he comes to." But so this young man walks on stage. He's got a fedora on. He's got a shirt that says, "Who's your daddy?" And the minute he took the stage, I knew that we were in for it. I had no idea what to expect. I knew he played keyboards. I knew he could play guitar if he wanted to. He did guitar at the beginning, but he went to the piano more so. And that's Gavin DeGraw, and that's Chariot, his solo album. I I was blown away. This is pop, soul, R&B, blues. It's got everything on it. Every song is a hit. It just, and it's wholesome. It's not.
Where's he from?
Flirty. Why did I want to say he's from?
I mean, it's interesting because for you to have seen him at Thursday in the Square, I'm just interested.
He so, and then I've seen him once before. Lauren we got to see him at the University of Buffalo. So he is from South Fallsburg, New York. That's where he was born.
Interesting.
I know. And then if you ever want to see how he fits into the whole environment of the music multiverse, he does go to Daryl's house and play with Daryl Hall, and it's fantastic because he sings one of his songs, and they do it. It's a great story about how he feels about music and what he does. But I mean, Soldier, not Soldier. Got him in the wrong record. No, that's terrible. Chariot was obviously big. But how many number ones? Follow Through, Chariot, I Don't Want to Be. You had Just Friends, and then Meaning, which was released toward the end of it. Chemical Party. I mean, it was just, there wasn't. And then he was, when you have a record like that, then you can do a stripped version of it, right? Well, they put that with it. When your debut is doing really well when they get to add the stripped version with it and selling more copies than I mean, I don't know how many times platinum this thing has been, but I'm sure it's up there. In the United States, yeah, it's platinum plus. It's platinum in a bunch of other countries too, but their platinum statuses are different. But still, one of my favorite youthful, fun debut albums. That I mean, this kid is very talented. He's a man. He's an older man now, but whatever. Anyway, that's Gavin DeGraw's Chariot. That's my number 3. And now,
hey, Sue.
Susie Q joins us.
So she can catch up. Hey, Susie.
Hey, what I missed? No kidding.
Well, you missed Jimi Hendrix Experience. You missed Notorious B.I.G. You missed what's his name from the Rolling Stones? Keith Richards. His record. Jeff had Ian Thornley.
Wizard of Oz from
Ozzy.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
When he was 10.
Little Richard,
which out the box.
Richard.
That's a great pick. So you have to do your 5, your
Jeff
4,
Beck,
and 3, and of course Beck. Yeah.
Yep.
So right now, if there's a contest, Jeff Crichton is winning because his are definitely the more solid picks.
Oh, stop it. He's not invited back. He makes us look bad.
His, you're
Go
like,
back to
oh my God, yeah.
Hawaii.
Mark's playing
There's no way
favorite.
Jeff know my favorites.
So Sue, you're number 5.
I had Phil Collins' Face Value.
Nice.
Runner up for me.
Nice.
good record.
1981.
1981. Yep.
In the air tonight.
Love it.
In the Air Tonight. Yes.
In the air.
I Missed Again was on there.
Yep.
So
Nice.
Phil Collins,
Roof is
number 5.
leaking.
I
Number
saw
4.
him at the Odd on that. I
Oh,
think he
did you?
toured that
Wow.
album.
I saw
Oh,
him last year.
Did you?
Big Gap.
Yeah, there's a gap. Wow. Number 4.
Number 4. Sorry, I'm still like this. Number 4, I went with Don Henley. I Can't Stand Still, 1983.
Nice.
There was a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
really like the solo work.
Mhm.
Personally. Number 3, I went with Sting the Dream of the Blue Turtles, 1985.
Nice.
Yeah, how can you not pick Sting?
I couldn't pick it. I tried.
Thought of it.
I like that album, but I couldn't put it where I wanted to put it. It's a good album.
Yeah,
It's just because you have so many albums that you have to put certain places, Mark.
Well, maybe that
Mhm.
was it.
We'll just leave it
that's
right there.
you know what happened. It's like with Jeff when I were talking about this. Just said, man, he came to my mind immediately, and then I went, no, but that's Dream of the Blue Turtles. That's a good album, but it's not. It's not Nothing Like the Sun, and it's certainly not Soul Cages. You know, and like,
Yeah.
you know, so,
Yeah,
but
still.
okay. So now
2.
you're caught up, right? We're all caught up, and we're back to
Yep.
Deb for number 2.
Okay, so I think Jeff Crichton started singing Tutti Frutti before. Well,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would sing it too, but it's for a different album.
Oh,
It's Elvis Presley's self-titled 1956 album, and
Yep.
that song was on that too. But Blue Suede Shoes was the song that everybody knows.
And that
Or
started that album.
yeah.
yeah, and he covered Ray Charles' I Got a Woman.
Yeah.
I love that song. It's an old blues song. Ray Charles covered it from probably Robert Johnson or somebody or
Somebody in
who-
that somebody on that.
somebody, but obviously this is one of those that we're talking about only had 12 songs, 28 minutes, but it really when you listen to it now after understanding the evolution of music the next 70 years and how important he was,
Mhm.
even though he stole a lot of ideas. But he stole like we all steal ideas,
Mhm.
and he just improved upon it. And I'm not a huge Elvis fan, never was, didn't care, seemed a little elementary to me because I came in at the time that I was listening to things like, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and
Oh.
it had to be this big grandiose, blah,
Right.
But when you listen to it and go, everything that I like at my age now grew out of what started here for me anyway.
Well, a lot
So
of
that's
other
why I
people got
picked it.
successful too from him putting spotlight on, those that started that. So that's
Yeah.
always good too. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other side to that.
His music in the like that music before he went before he had to join the army.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That music was just like incredible, eye-opening, jaw-dropping. His
Mhm.
voice was great. His band was fantastic. He was never the same after he got
Correct.
back out of the army because the colonel had him
Agreed.
making these crappy movies.
Mm.
Yeah,
Um,
he became like this cheesy joke.
yeah,
And that was at a time where I think he was more visible to me in real time,
yeah.
with those movies like you were saying, and his Las Vegas stuff and the nostalgic stuff, the beginning, that's where it's at for sure.
Well,
You can
if
see.
when he did that '68 comeback show on TV,
Mhm.
which is incredible too.
Mhm.
But he had a couple albums that followed that were great. His Memphis album
Yes. Mhm.
was great. There were a couple things after that. Yeah, before he had to go.
I'm making a
before he
note
went
of that. I do not recall that for some reason. I'm going to go back. Because listen, he became a brand
Yeah,
Mhm.
out of I don't know, just going with the flow of things, I guess. But it's almost like he didn't feel the music anymore. He kind of
Right.
Yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
those performances probably at the shows in Vegas were probably really good. You know what I
Oh,
mean? I can, you know,
yeah.
I would think, you know, I don't, anyway. All right, cool. Great pick. Back to Mr. Crichton to see what he's got at number 2.
So my number 2 record comes from one of the first solo albums from my favorite band of all time. And so when Lennon decided to leave the Beatles and just start making music with Yoko, and I'm not counting like the experimental garbage that he that he put out, like, you know,
Right.
the Wedding album and Two Virgins and Life with the Lions. Those were not music albums. So his first album that came out in the fall of 1970 was just called John Lennon plus the Plastic Ono Band.
Mhm.
And it was a stripped down record with him on piano, Klaus Voormann on bass. Lennon played guitar on it too, and Ringo drummed. And Yoko's she's designated as Wind
Hmm.
that record. So whatever that means. But the the two of them were going through like some primal therapy at the time, and his lyrics and the songs were just so heartfelt and filled with tenderness and angst, and his great voice. You know, when he screams towards the end of the opening track, "Mother," "Mama, don't leave, Pop and come home." It's heart wrenching. And then you flip over to the second side, and he's singing this beautiful song called "Love." It's like really tender. You know, the first side had a classic song called "Working Class Hero," and then the album, you know, closes with a song called "God," where he just lists things that he doesn't believe in anymore. And it's just lyrically, it's great. Vocally, it's great, and it's a beautifully stripped down record
Can I
by
ask
the,
you something?
by the leader of the band.
Yeah.
Yes, Deb.
By tribal therapy, are you talking mushrooms?
No,
'Cause that's what.
no. Psychotherapy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a tribal.
No,
Oh yeah, mushroom.
Yeah. although that might have been involved. I don't know.
Who knows? Might have accidentally been involved in, you know.
Yeah, but that record's outstanding.
Love it.
And you know, I would have picked George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass,"
That's not his first.
but that wasn't his first solo album.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, but I noticed that people still think that the debut of his is good too. I know they put Lennon's
What,
way ahead of
Electronic
it.
Sound?
Yeah,
No, it's a garbage album.
is it? I
Oh,
was on lists that I saw, and I'm like, geez, I
No.
don't even remember
I
that
don't
album at
even
all.
know what that. I don't even know if I
It's
listened to that.
he got like a new instrument called a Moog synthesizer back in 1969, and just
Oh, okay. So now,
Oh, that crazy
hang on,
thing.
hang on.
and he just played around with it for
Mhm.
it's 40 minutes of noise. It's not very good.
Audience, please be aware that Mr. Crichton, like my hatred for Kiss, he is not a big electronic Moog or Kraftwerk individual fan. So
No.
he goes, he cites that as a irresponsibility in music history. So yeah, death to the Moog.
Death to the
No,
Moog.
not Death to the Moog. You know, I mean, he used it on "Here Comes the Sun," but that was just like an experiment. It was an experimental record. It wasn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jeff Young.
I'm going with 1998, Hellbilly Deluxe from Rob Zombie. After
Uh-oh. I see somebody else on the panel wearing a Rob Zombie shirt, I think.
Oh, there you go.
I
Yeah,
didn't
the
know.
long version of the album name is Hellbilly Deluxe 13 Tales of Cadaverous Cavorting Inside Spook Show International. It kind of portrays his love for classic horror films and heavy metal and electronic music. On Meet the Creeper, that song, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue actually plays drums on that. One song, Dragula, it's the third song. It's named after the vehicle in the Munsters TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know that one.
And I thought it was cool that the album booklet is 24 pages long. and it's got lyrics and comics drawn by Rob Zombie, but also has numerous drawings that were contributed by two of the artists from Marvel. And Walmart refused to sell this album originally, unless they get an edited version. And originally, Zombie didn't want to do that, but then he decided he should, because at that time, he thought there was still enough parts of the U.S. where kids really had Walmart or nothing else to get the album.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I picked. It's
Nice.
definitely a different album. It's good. It's just different. I mean, it's definitely not White Zombie. It's definitely got more electronic and a little more experimental stuff, but it's good heavy metal, electronic music.
Good choice.
Metal, horror, funk.
Yeah,
It's a great record. It really is.
it is a good one.
It's a fun record.
Yeah, for sure.
Sue, I'll let you chime in for number 2 now.
So yeah, there are so many like Rob Zombie, but I was kind of stuck in an 80s mode for some reason. I don't know why, and just nostalgic type things. And so I went with George Michael, Faith in 1987. I don't know. I don't think like in the beginning, well, I always liked him and I liked his voice, but I don't think I appreciated it. He really was an incredible singer. He had a beautiful voice, and he was an entertainer, and it was just a perfect album for him, I think. So it highlighted his vocals in a I don't know, more mature way, I guess, than like Wham and
Yeah,
just showed a different side of him. So
good choice.
Yeah.
All right. So my number 2 was going to be an individual who, I don't know if you can really tell the difference between the band's album and his solo albums.
Mm.
And that's despite the fact that Jeff Lynne's on there, Del Shannon's on the record, and it's one of my favorite records of all time. But I pushed it aside, so Full Moon Fever is not in there by Tom Petty. Because I fell in love with a record that I had no idea existed in 1976 by a gentleman that probably no one knows exists except for YouTubers who have followed some people and found out some things. This is a jazz album from 1976. I've talked about it on the channel before. You want to hear more of the story of it, you can find it. But it's Herman Zobel and his album Zobel. All right.
Okay.
He walked in on a recording session. He came over from, I can't remember where he came over from. He had his music notes and everything that he's going to do. He came and he walked in on, I can't think of the people right now. I don't know if Miles Davis was in the room, but there were famous people at the studio. And he walked in at this age, very young, and they said, what are you doing here? He goes, who are you? And he goes, I'm the best piano player in the world. And they all went, what? And then he played. He only made one album, and then he disappeared from the planet.
Oh, yeah,
What
you probably know
happened?
him.
Don't know.
Where is
No one
he?
knows. He's nowhere.
No. How do you
There was a
spell his name? I'm going to find out. I'm a detective.
You won't be able
at
to
heart.
find out. I guarantee you.
Find him,
Anyway,
Jeb.
Herman, Hermann. Last name Szobel. Andy Edwards has done 2 stories on him. They thought maybe they saw him at the Wailing Wall, but they weren't.
He's signed under witness protection records, so if that means anything.
Probably.
Yeah. And he's Banksy.
He's
He's also
something.
the artist Banksy.
Listen, you've got
Buckethead.
John Coltrane, you've got Miles Davis, you've got
Come on.
Dizzy Gillespie, you've got Herbie Hancock. But for some reason, their debut albums don't speak to me. Their later stuff does, and things in between. Love Supreme is not Coltrane's first record. All right, although his first record's really good. This kid, I'm telling you, couldn't have been more than 16, 18, does this record in 76, and it's just out of nowhere. And he plays the piano, but for some reason he's got a sound that he wants, and he gets the band to do it too. It's all his bidding and his thing. It is a marvelous record. I listen to it more so. It's like I said, it's moved Full Moon Fever into, I wanted to talk about some other albums, but again, I've talked about this album before. It's something you should listen to. But obviously if you're not into jazz, that's going to be a little bit difficult for you. But it's a shocking record to me that a person that talented, that good, where people in the room, and I don't know why I want to say Dinah Shore, but there were people in the room that were respectable, and they could have just said, "Get the hell out of here, you little kid, goodbye." And they gave him a shot, and they went, "What?" And they just then he got a shot, and then disappeared. Now the record didn't sell, but that happens to jazz, right? That's why
Maybe he'll
that's why a
resurface.
jazz record's $19 because it
If
doesn't.
you're out there, Herman, if you're out there,
We're going to
Give us
call
a
him
he
call.
didn't. Yeah, he didn't become
Herman.
Herman Hermits either or anything of that nature. Of course, they were before him.
Interesting.
Anyway, number ones, right? Mr. Cried.
No, you just skipped me.
Oh,
Debbie.
Debs. Yes, sorry.
It's okay, because I know you skipped me because
Yeah,
it's never a surprise.
because he's ahead, right? Because he's scoring the most
It's
points.
never a surprise what I'm going to talk about in my number one if I could fit it into any type of topic that we have at hand. So I noticed that in my notes, I covered I'm going to cover 5 songs or 5 albums. Each one comes from a different decade. So
Right.
I had the 50s, the 60s, 70s, the 90s,
Now you go back
now the 80s. Now, a lot of us have picked people that these are their debut albums after already being successful commercial success artists, right?
Yep.
And out of my first 4, I only had Michael Jackson, and I don't really count that because he was still like 3 years old. So, but this man definitely had a lot of commercial success prior to this debut solo album. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because my heart was broken when the band broke up. But the versatility in this album, not that maybe that I appreciated it at the time,
Right.
but it sure set the stage of what went on for the next 40 years and beyond. So
Yep.
it's Robert Plant's Pictures at 11, 1982, 10 songs, about an hour long. I'm Mrs. Plant. What can I say? There's not a song on this album I don't like, or what I should say love, but I also played this album CD, I should say, in my Bang& Olufsen CD player, thousands and thousands of times. So of course I love all the songs because they're familiar, but I decided to re-listen to it again because it's been a minute or so, and now that I can appreciate things that I went, why are you in the honey drippers? What is happening here? That made me mad. That was my Robert Plant anger moment. But when I listened to this album again, I could hear some lighter stuff that for sure came from his early musicianship before there was Led Zeppelin, and what his influences were with his upbringing and more lighter, I guess, soda pop type stuff. And that's in that one song, Pledge Pin. But then you start to feel, oh, this is light and airy. And then Worse Than Detroit, that is a Zeppelin song for sure, through and through. And Like I've Never Been Gone, that song too. It's like him saying, I'm still there, but I got other places to go over there. I'm not going to forget you. Don't worry. I'll be back. And as I was listening to it, I thought, look and see if your friend Mark, Andy Edwards, had any, playing on this. And I look up the list of musicians and I went, well, duh. I kept hearing this drum going, that is such a good drum. It was Phil Collins played
Yeah.
on this album. So not
Yeah.
our friend, but
No, a little old in that, or that's a little too. It's a little bit more of the Priory of Brian comes
yeah,
along.
exactly. So of course,
Still played on a lot of people's albums. By God, yeah, no question. You can.
but yeah, that's my favorite, obviously, and obviously it's my most sentimental one
Yeah.
because Robert, I'm still available.
He toured a little bit behind that record too.
Oh,
I
And Phil
yes,
went on the road with him.
wow.
Yeah.
that's fun. That's a fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah. And after hearing that record, that made me say, this is the guy that made the Zeppelin soar.
I would agree. I definitely I always thought that Page was a little overrated in certain aspects, but it's still great.
About that. I mean, he was the brainchild,
Yeah.
but Plant made it
I think
soar.
that Jimmy Page would have made anything successful. I think Robert Plant made Zeppelin beyond successful.
how would you got to be someone who can sing over those two guys. That's a
Exactly.
lot of noise, right? And
There's a lot of noise.
yeah. And I today's music, that's its biggest problem. The lead,
These kids today.
they're not committed. They're not. They can tell me it's sort of there, but they don't. I don't know. They don't feel it. There are some. Don't get me wrong. It's not everybody, but there are a lot of good records. I like them, and I'm like, but it's always the vocal that doesn't soar like it needs to. Either they're decompressing it in the production because it can't. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a producer, but I know what I hear and over the time.
Yep.
All right, now.
Choice.
Now that
Come
we
on, Mr. Crowd.
now that we stamped our Plant on this episode, we'll move
See,
to
Plant was going to be in my top 5 too, but I had a feeling you were going to pick it. So
Oh.
I did not include
That's
it in
what I
my
was
top
gonna say.
5.
I'm too predictable.
I didn't include it just because I wanted you to have that.
Ah,
there you go. Sweet.
But it is a great record.
It is.
So my number 1, we're going to sing along. Mark almost gave me a segue, with my number 1. So let's all sing along
okay.
and sing, she's a good girl.
Loves her
Crazy about Elvis.
She loves horses.
Jesus. Come on, everyone. Everybody watch
And
it. Sing along,
America too.
Yeah.
So when Full Moon Fever came out, did it sound like the Heartbreakers record? Sure, because it was Petty and and Mike Campbell.
Yeah.
And he brought Jeff Lynne in for the ride, and so Jeff Lynne records this phenomenal record. Every song from beginning to end is great, and a lot of them have become classics. So soon after that, Jeff Lynne's, helping George Harrison record his Cloud 9 record.
Oh yeah.
He's still doing some stuff with Petty. I think they might have been doing, was it before or after Into the Great Wide Open? Might have been after. But, Harrison said, I need a second song for this B-side, this single, from my Cloud 9 album. And so, Lynn called Petty to come on over the recording studio, and Jeff Lynne was working on Roy Orbison's record. And so Roy Orbison came over, and Lynn was working with Dylan, George was always good friends with Dylan, so he called him over.
Yeah,
and
so record
B-side song called Handle with Care. And that was the beginning of the Traveling Wilburys right after Full Moon Fever.
Oh my gosh.
So, but that's one song was only intended to be a B-side, and
Really?
it grew from there. Yeah.
Yeah, they wound up recording at Dylan's house.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite albums, Jeff. I just didn't realize that he wasn't with the Heartbreakers anymore.
That's the hard
I don't
part.
pay attention. I don't
Well,
pay
he was still with
attention to
them,
that.
but that was his first solo record. I don't know why he decided to do a solo record.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That is, I honestly, I'll tell you what. Let's see. And Jeff Crichton excluded probably. What's the next one? That's a solo record. Do you know?
From
Oh,
Tom
Petty?
Petty?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Sue?
Well, I don't know names of anything.
Wildflower.
Yeah,
Wildflower.
Oh,
which was a fantastic record.
yes, it was. I have that too.
And you know, when you think of the catalog of Tom
Yeah.
Petty and the Heartbreakers, those two tend to like just they're
Right there.
markers that are
Yeah,
you
they
think
are.
it's Campbell and him.
Interesting.
Wildflower might be a better record too.
I,
Yeah.
possible.
Oh, that's a whole other show, Mark.
Hey, listen, if we do that out catalog review show, look out, right?
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Jeff Young.
I picked an album from 1983, Holy Diver.
Were you born
from
yet?
Dio, Ronnie James Dio.
I worked that record.
Following Rainbow and the 2 albums of Black Sabbath. That makes 2 guys on my
Nice.
list follow Black Sabbath to go solo. What's funny is when you think about like Dio is starting the solo album. It's his first solo album. He's 40 years old at this time. A lot of rockers are on the downside of their career at this time, and I don't think his voice ever wavered for his entire
No.
career.
Mhm.
Anyway, this is like, a lot of different places you look online will tell you it's considered one of the best heavy metal albums of all time, and he's
Mhm.
referred to sometimes as grandfather of heavy metal. Dave Grohl from Nirvana and Foo Fighters notes him as an influence. And the album art is interesting. It's got a demon wielding a broken chain that broke off what was tied to what looked like a priest, almost drowning in the water. But when asked about the album art, Dio explained that if you avoid stereotypes, the roles could be reversed. How do you, just because it looks like the devil, that can be the priest and vice versa. But it's also funny too, is like, I remember being in high school and kids would be like, hey, if you turn the logo of Dio upside down, it says devil. But honestly, the name Dio is not even his real last name. It was a kind of like coined from his grandmother. Dio in Italian means God. So kind of funny that way.
Yeah.
That I would.
He also kind of popularized, I guess, in his shows the devil horn hand gesture. To me, it always just meant rock on or F yeah. But it does have a really good vocal range, obviously. And when you think about like guys with range today, think of like maybe Disturbed, somebody who has maybe more of an operatic background that can sing really nice melodic songs, but then put some grit or growl into it. And while I wouldn't say it's growl, he has his own style. He has to have more of a fry or a grit, but he actually sings some real good melodic. It's like a metal album that has melody to it as well. And then for his band, he had a guitarist, Vivian Campbell, who went on to play with Def Leppard. I think he still plays with them. But Thin Lizzy and Whitesnake was Vivian Campbell's stomping ground too. Yeah, just a really, really good metal album, but not your typical shouting. It's got an actual real vocalist,
This is
He's
crazy.
a nice guy
because
to work with too.
Mark, you're the only
Jeff,
person that ever stumps me on bands and artists, and I know nothing about this band at all, Jeff. At all.
No, it's an individual, Rodney James Dio.
Yeah, he started out with Rainbow. Had some good
Okay.
songs.
Like he came from hair band.
No,
Rainbow
he came
was a
from
hair
hard
band.
rock band, hard rock blues band in the 1970s.
did
Really?
you ever hear Jeff Young? Did you ever hear his original band Elf?
I know of it, but I couldn't name a song of it. I don't know it well enough.
I haven't. I don't
You
think
can go
I
on YouTube because they Elf began in Cortland, New York,
Okay.
and so
Is that the one that actually
Interesting.
is that the album cover that has it's beige and it
yes,
has okay. I know the cover, but I don't think I've ever listened to the album.
yeah, and that's where Richie Blackmore found him
Okay,
seeing Elvis.
Really?
that makes
I
sense.
was lucky enough to see Dio when he toured in the reunion tour of Heaven and Hell. You know, playing the Black Sabbath songs that he played. Well, 3 albums technically, but two only matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I don't, even if I go online, I just search quick live. I mean, it doesn't matter what year. I don't feel like his voice really had ever diminished before he passed.
No.
Huh. Interesting.
Did you
Cool.
you worked that record then, Jeff?
I did. Yeah.
Ah.
I worked a few of his records, and I did work the Sabbath Heaven
The
and Hell
Sabbath one,
record too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did a radio interview with Tommy Iommi at 97 Rock.
Oh,
You did.
And Iommi, it was during Halloween, and they had a casket outside the studio. And Iommi said to me, put me in this casket and roll me into the studio. I want to do the interview inside the casket.
And this was before we could watch radio on a
Yeah.
podcast or anything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You just had to be in the casket.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
I love
did you oblige?
Of course.
Of course. I would have. Whatever you say, sir.
Absolutely.
Nice. All right, I'm making sure. Sue, you are next. Is that?
But she's muted.
Yeah, she knows that. She's
Oh, I know. She's a professional.
she's getting the
Sorry.
cough and everything else.
Yeah, I'm sparing you all. Well, it's kind of a dud because it sounds like somebody already went with Michael Jackson.
Ah,
You know, and again, like you were saying, it goes way back to like when he was young, but just to know that I mean, what was about to happen, and it's kind of a cool thing, you know.
Yep.
So had to give him a nod.
oh, so somebody stole yours?
It sounded
I
like you
did.
guys were talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
had Michael
Well,
Jackson.
someone stole mine too. Wonder who.
Oh,
Mine is Phil Collins, Face Value.
so there was some stealing going on this
Yes,
episode. There's no hate here.
I don't think it was any secret when this was put out that immediately that would be. Although, if you were going to ask me, I would probably say I don't care anymore. I like better. In the Air Tonight, Droned is a crazy. You know, obviously there's still some sort of prog sitting in him at that point, and I'm sure that I didn't even look back at the record. Who's to say Tony Banks didn't do anything on it? But I Missed Again. But The Roof is Leaking is a haunting song. It's probably even more haunting than In the Air Tonight. In the Air Tonight is just more popular because of that drum fill is the greatest drum fill of all time.
Well,
Of all time.
Yeah.
Doesn't he do the Beatles Tomorrow Never Knows, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it has a prog sensibility to it the way it's put together. Yeah.
We used to listen to that quite a bit.
Infinitely.
That tape cassette.
Infinitely. That tape cassette is, if it gets used again, it's on its last legs. No question.
It's snap
You know, it's
or dust.
You know, when you look at those old ones, they're brown, they're not clear.
Yeah.
And the brown is looking, I don't know, it's rust colored at certain points. So. All right.
People over 50 think of In the Air Tonight with Miami Vice. People under 50 think of it as part of the Hangover movie.
It's true. It's true.
That's funny.
We're long, so honorable mentions 1 or 2, just to get some flavor.
They were already
Oh, I
mentioned,
didn't even
so
do
I don't
that.
need to say anything.
Didn't do it.
I didn't either.
Peter Gabriel's first solo record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that one?
Oh, yes.
How about
so good.
Robbie Robertson's first solo record?
Okay, good. You got mine.
Oh, that's a good one.
Dennis Wilson, Pacific Ocean Blue.
Well, you had mentioned him on a program before. I listened to that.
Yeah.
It's a very good record.
Jackson Browne, Saturate Before Using.
That was his only album too, right? Well, the one.
What? Oh, Dennis?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was his only.
it was. Jackson Browne, Saturate Before Using. Paul McCartney's McCartney record.
Mhm.
And Rod Stewart, An Old Raincoat, Won't Let You Down.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever listened to that record. I don't think. I think what happens is, and this is the problem with, like, by the time you get it, like you're born, right? I'm born, and he's already done this. The greatest hits is in the way,
Yes.
right? You
It's
don't
true.
go back, right?
No, it's
But
very
that
true.
that was his first solo album after the Jeff Beck group, and just for giggles too, Eric Clapton's
Yeah, his
self-titled solo record with Delaney Bramlett produced, and
Yeah, that was, yeah.
and if you want to go back even further, one of the originators of rock and roll, Dion DiMucci, his first solo album had "Run Around Sue" on it.
yeah.
Oh,
Title cut, and
run around.
he to this day in his mid-80s is still making music.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
That's a cool little tidbit. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So if you look up Dion, if you go on YouTube, you'll find like he did some duet things.
Yeah,
Very good.
fun.
I'll mention Dick Dale.
Yeah.
The surfer rock guy. He was on album for today yesterday. Solid. If it wasn't for him, there'd be no metal.
Right.
That picking style became metal, like Eddie Van Halen. I'll mention two that no one will probably know. Phil Roy, Issues and Options. He won a Singers Award for the best album of the year in a certain category by a certain organization in that, and it's a beautiful rock folk slow record. It's got a slow burn to it. He's got a great vocal, definitely blues associated. And then David Gogo from Canada. Sue will know.
Mhm.
David Gogo, blues guitarist of the Colin James kind of field. That was his solo record. That was it's got great. It's fun. It's fast. It's traditional, but it's still super good. So and then my only other one that's in the wheelhouse of standard, and you'd be like, oh my God, what I think Lenny Kravitz. Let Love
Oh
Rule.
no!
Mhm.
That album is I mean
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Lenny.
Cab Driver.
Yeah.
You want to ride in that cab, damn it. You want to be in that cab, wherever the hell he's going.
That was a good album.
That was really good.
It's a cool record. So, and that
You're
was
right. Yeah.
but
And
the
I
Robbie
have a
Robertson
little
one was
wait, I have a tidbit about that Lenny Kravitz album.
okay.
My cousin who lives out in California, she was married to a guy that's a photographer, and he did the photography for that album. I
Oh,
don't
cool.
know
Nice.
if he was one of many photographers, but I never got to meet Lenny because, divorce happens in
Right.
families.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll just say "Not of This Earth" by Joe Satriani.
Yeah, that's
Good record. Yeah.
yeah, yes.
I was trying to think of what the Steve Vai record might have been, that was his solo record too. You could Yngwie Malmsteen, those kind of guys, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you could
There's a lot.
McLaughlin, any of
Yngwie
those.
Malmsteen is coming to Clearwater.
Ooh.
So what were your favorite solo male debuts? Who did we miss? A ton, I'm sure. I'd love to hear your comments, or I should hear them, see them. I guess you can't audio. You could audio 'em, maybe. My thanks to the panelists for joining us. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, articles, videos, podcasts, albums, bands, artists, whatever we can get our hands on. Remember, Tuesday, next week, we'll wrap this all up with the most important debuts in history. I think some that were mentioned tonight will probably make that program, but it'll be nice to banter and get pissed off about those that should or shouldn't be. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. And until tomorrow, happy listening.
Bye.